So it's no mystery that Nintendo has kind of been fumbling the revelation of the Switch 2, the launch pricing, all sorts of stuff. And that's par for the course. A lot of companies struggle with announcing like new hardware, framing it properly, especially when there's things like tariffs that you have to contend with. But they have blown me away in the last day or so with shockingly stupid defenses of all of this. Like seriously, I'm going to show you some stuff in this video that will blow your mind. Stuff that demonstrates the executives over at Nintendo are horrifyingly out of touch, not just with like gamers in general, but also just with regular human beings. I'm absolutely in awe of the stupidity that this launch has demonstrated, and I'm going to share it with you because stupid things are funny. Quick recap, the Nintendo Switch was revealed, shown off with a bunch of cool little bitty features, a bunch of surprise releases as well, even an exclusive game from FromSoft coming at some point in 2026. And I think a lot of gamers were actually somewhat impressed by that presentation. I at least know I was. But one thing was notably absent from that presentation, and that was pricing. In the hours that followed the reveal, people started to figure out what the console was going to be priced at, and they started to figure out why maybe Nintendo didn't communicate that on their massive platform while there were hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people watching. They announced that the Switch 2 was going to be priced roughly $50 more than most people expected at $450. And that already was like a bit much, but you know, if the game lineup is good, we can deal with it. I don't think that would have been like the end all be all. But then another couple of hours went by, and people started to notice store listings for various games. And what would emerge was the reality that Nintendo is charging $80 as the starting price for some of their most anticipated and big budget games, specifically Mario Kart World. And to add insult to injury, the MSRP for physical versions that you'll buy like on the shelf at Best Buy, Walmart, Target, whatever, those are gonna be priced at $90 if you want the physical version. What's amazing is we all kind of naively assumed that the greedy company that would be the villain of 2025 would be Take-Two Interactive with Grand Theft Auto 6, that they would price that at $80 or $90 or $100, and that would be the first domino that falls on the way to normalizing higher price points for AAA games. But Nintendo straight up said, hold my Joy-Cons, and did it first for some reason. So already people were kind of peeved about that. But then there were tariffs announced, specifically levied against Vietnam and Cambodia, two countries where Nintendo actually had shifted manufacturing of the Switch 2 in order to avoid tariffs in China and other places where a lot of tech is built and assembled. So overnight, basically, the profit margin on the Switch 2, which was quite healthy after bumping it to $450, evaporated. And so they straight up pulled the pre-order date from the US, so US customers can't pre-order the console at all. They say they will at a later date allow you to pre-order it, but as of right now, it's just on pause. And they announced that they're doing the same in Canada. So if you're Canadian and you would have pre-ordered the console like tomorrow, today, depending on when you're watching this video, you just can't. You just can't. And so no doubt this is a headache for Nintendo, but the biggest thing, and what I've seen the most people frustrated by and ticked off about, is how Nintendo across the board is trying to nickel and dime everybody, and it really seems like they are not just cranking prices in response to tariffs or something. They are actively trying to milk all of their customers as dry as humanly possible. And that's reflected in another thing, which is that the the C button on the Joy-Con that they showed off for like Nintendo Chat, well, like straight up, you don't get to use the button unless you pay for their online subscription. They monetized a button with a subscription service. You cannot make this up. It's crazy, dude. As I say in this Polygon article, you see what happens if you aren't a subscriber and press the C button, that big button right there. Well, not much, according to the Vice President of Player and Product Experience, Bill Trinan. He said, quote, "You would be able to find out about the NSO or Nintendo Switch Online subscription there and get a sense of some of the functionality." I am not joking. If you do not give them money for the online service, this button on the physical controller you bought just doesn't work. And when you press it, no doubt accidentally occasionally while playing games, it will bring up a pop-up to invite you to subscribe to that membership. It's unbelievable. Pair this with another announcement, which is that the Switch 2 Welcome Tour isn't going to be free. This was that weird like tech demo thing where they explain what the Switch 2 is able to do and why it works the way it does and how magnets work and all that fun stuff. This is like a little spin-off game that you should be including in the console for free for people to just understand why this thing they bought for $450, if not more once they raise prices again, why it's cool and why it's worth your money. But instead, they're going to be charging a cool, clean $10 for that. And when asked why they're charging for this thing that every other company on the planet would include for free, almost without a doubt, Trinan, the same guy, as we mentioned earlier, the VP of Product and Player Experience, said it's a pretty robust piece of software. Okay, sure. It's intended for those that want more information about the system rather than necessarily a quick intro to everything it does. Money, please. Like, it's crazy. Again, I kind of feel like I'm taking crazy pills for a little bit because you see some like hardcore Nintendo fans that are defending it and being like, well, it's just the price you pay for quality. That's what you get when you have a cutting edge piece of technology. And you like want to bash your head against the wall. But then you see on social media, everybody kind of agreeing with this. In fact, at the Nintendo Treehouse Live event where they were showcasing some gameplay of upcoming projects that they showed the day before, I actually pulled it up on my phone while I was eating breakfast, and I saw all of the comments are just flooding the chat with drop the price, drop the price, drop the price, drop the price, drop the price. I don't think Nintendo has ever had this much blowback on anything they've ever done. But I think it's really remarkable that they thought they could not just release the console a little more expensive, but that they could raise the standard price for AAA games. Granted, it's not for everything that they're putting out. Donkey Kong, for example, is going to be $70, while Mario Kart is $80, but they are raising the bar. Now, if another company comes out and prices GTA 6 at $80, they're not the bad guys now. Nintendo took that blow for them, and so they've established that as the new ceiling. And that's not something that you should just roll over and take as a gamer. Because here's the thing, even if Mario Kart World is worth $80, it has cascading effects all throughout the rest of the industry. It'll have effects on everything Nintendo does, sure, but also PlayStation, Xbox, third-party devs like Take-Two Interactive, EA, all of those big AAA games, certainly Ubisoft, all of them are gonna start to set that as the standard. Or they'll be like, oh, well, we're gonna price it at 70 as a gift to the consumer. Bitch, that's full price. At least it was until a week ago. It's a significant thing. This is how you normalize the higher prices. People said when NBA 2K21 came out at $70 that was just gonna be for select titles, the big budget stuff. We shouldn't get used to it. It was just gonna be for special releases. And what do you see now? Now, that is the normal price. That is the standard AAA price. And that's exactly what's gonna happen with these $80 games as well. But because they couldn't just have one scandal, they then have to get into this other scandal with pricing and monetizing a button on the controller tied to their online subscription service, which already is like, are you insane? It's just asinine. And then they double down on all of this time and time and time again. They, of course, have had some things that are outside of their control, such as the tariffs, which might end up seeing a further price increase. Some analysts I just was reading about on Bloomberg are suggesting they may have to price the Switch 2 at $530 minimum just to make a sliver of a profit. At which point, I don't know who is buying that console. I really don't. I have no idea, because it also probably sees all of the accessories see price increases as well. The Joy-Cons will go to $80, $90 a piece. The Pro controller goes to $110. Like, this has cascading effects all throughout. Without a doubt, it is a disaster for Nintendo. So how should they deal with this? How would you expect them to deal with it? Would you expect them to communicate to gamers, just meet them where they're at and like explain candidly why they've had to price things the way that they are, and maybe walk back the $80 price for Mario Kart, explain that, we were braced for problems with global influences or whatever? Maybe we do that? No. Nintendo has chosen to make a series of hilarious mistakes over the last day or two in an attempt, I guess, to explain away this or to quell the concerns and fears with the pricing, but it doesn't do it. So buckle up. If you have pillows or oven mitts or even maybe even just sit on your hands, because the face palming is going to be quite powerful an urge. I mean, you're gonna, trust me, this is top tier stupid. They have somehow sprinted to the peak of Mount Stupid, and it really is something to behold. So the first thing Nintendo decided to do was to send out executives, who everybody loves, to talk to journalists, press, and the media in order to justify the pricing that they were doing. Already not a great idea. We've looked at some of those comments already in this video, and they are not exactly compelling, but they decided to double down and send them out directly to game journalists, such as the teams over at IGN. They asked the same guy we've looked at the comments already of, Trinan, and in his response to the questions about pricing, Trinan insisted Mario Kart World justifies its price tag and pointed to the upcoming dedicated Mario Kart World Nintendo Direct, where fans will learn more about the game and what it has to offer. He said, quote, directly, I would say it's less about the strategy of pricing Mario Kart World. It's more just whenever we look at a given game, we just look at what is the experience and what's the content, what's the value. Mario Kart World, I think, especially as you see from the Nintendo Direct, not to give you any hints or anything, but I did read your article this morning, and I think you had mentioned that you didn't find a lot to discover when roaming around. So I would say tune into our Mario Kart Direct to see what maybe you'll be able to find out about that. But honestly, this is a game that is so big and so vast, and you will find so many little things in it to discover. And there's still some other aspects remaining that I think as people end up buying and playing the game, especially buying, they're going to find this will probably be the richest, quite the word choice, Mario Kart experience they've ever had. Basically, we've priced it at 80 because we think we can get away with pricing it at 80 with what we have in the game. So suck it up, deal with it. Like, it literally is just corporate word salad. But as with most corporate word salad, whenever you start to see it employed, it usually betrays something that they're trying to hide from, or something they're embarrassed about, something that they're trying to like pivot away from. And that is, without a doubt, the stress and the anxiety tied to all of these price hikes and how upset the community is over it. But again, it gets better because they didn't have enough, you know? Like, that answer, not great. I don't think anybody is looking at that answer being like, okay, yeah, no, he convinced me. Guys, let's give him 80 bucks. I don't think anybody's doing that. So they decided to send out Mr. Bowser, the president of Nintendo of America. And he might have just won the award for the stupidest thing of 2025. I'm not joking. Speaking to CBC, they interviewed Mr. Bowser, and what he said was, quote, as we look at Nintendo Switch 2, and you think about the feature sets that I talked about, we believe that the pricing is appropriate for the value of the machine and the gameplay experience overall. Okay, it might be worth $450. If we have to like raise prices to 500 plus, I really don't think that that makes sense. But okay, it still doesn't point to the question of games, which is something you'll see them do a lot, where they kind of combine the pricing of the Switch and the games, because they don't want to talk about the pricing of the games specifically, because that's kind of hard to defend. So instead they try to say, well, the Switch 2 is actually a really good value when you price out components and stuff like that. But he continues, we recognize there are some people that may not be able to afford the Switch 2's price point, including the console and the games. That's why we wanted to make the other Switch platforms available, so people still have an opportunity to come into our gaming universe, be part of these characters in these worlds, and see value, if you will, in whatever rung of the platform they come in. He's straight up calling you broke. Like, straight up, if you, I'm gonna die. He straight up is just like, yeah, if you can't afford it, go buy that console from 8 years ago that we've already been selling. Go buy that, brokey. Like, that's the approach they're taking, really? But it's not the first time that an executive has said something so dumb, basically telling their own customers or potential customers, yeah, if you don't like it, don't buy it. Like, daring people not to, and to just go buy the old thing everybody's ready to move on from. You see, back in the year of our Lord and Savior Jeff Keighley, 2013, there was an interview that a guy named Don Matrick did. You see, Don Matrick headed up the Xbox and Xbox Live initiatives for Microsoft all through that 360 generation leading into the Xbox One. And if you don't remember the Xbox One launch period, that's fine. Basically, all you need to know is that a lot of people were quite upset because they announced that the Xbox One was going to be always online. You could not like trade copies of games. So if you bought a copy of a game, you could not give it to your friend or sell it secondhand. It was going to be tied to your account forever. Like, just think of any sort of anti-competitive, anti-consumer policy. The Xbox One almost certainly preached it and put it forward as like something they were proud of. But predominantly, the primary concern was with regard to the always online connectivity. It's just a really sucky thing to be told, like, hey, buy our multi-$100 console, and then you can't play games if your internet drops out, if you live somewhere rural and you don't have a steady internet connection. That just sucks. And there were even reports of like active duty service members in the military, in military bases all over the world, serving like the United States, asking Xbox, an American company, hey, we're not going to be able to buy this. We don't have steady internet at this military base in the middle of wherever. So what are we supposed to do? And Mr. Don Matrick, he did an interview with the one and only Jeff Keighley and had possibly the most out of touch, dumbass explanation for what people should do in that instance. And you'll recognize that it sounds quite familiar to what we just read from Mr. Bowser at Nintendo. Okay, ready? Again, pillows, duct tape to your hands, oven mitts, something like that. Get ready.
Yeah, I think people are going to love it, and then they're going to understand what we're trying to create and how it links games and entertainment, the functionality of the box, some of the advantages that you get of having a box that is designed to use an online state. So that, to me, is a future-proof choice, and I think people could have arguably gone the other way if we didn't do it, and fortunately we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360, that's your message if you don't, like it?
If you have zero access to the internet, that is an offline device. I mean, seriously, when I read the blogs and thought about who's really the most impacted, there was a person who said, hey, I'm on a nuclear sub, and I don't even know what it means to be on a nuclear sub, but I've got to imagine that it's not easy to get an internet connection.
It's amazing. He's actually telling like active duty service members, just buy that thing that's old, you know. It's not for you. Stop. It's amazing. It's shocking. It's stunning. I also find it hilarious that he's like, yeah, it's a future proofing of the device, as if requiring an online connection makes it future-proofed. It's the opposite. It makes it so in the future, when those servers are not on, you will not be able to use that device. It's asinine. It's dumb. And he's also like, I think there's a lot of people that would go the other way. Like, people would not buy it unless it was always online. Like, this is how horrifically out of touch these executives are, because they're not actually gamers. Mr. Matrick himself actually had a history at like various software companies, mostly in the upper echelons, where he lurked in like a variety of leadership positions, mostly overseeing various studios and the management of those, not actually like making games or playing games. And what's really, really funny is that on May 21st, 2013, he revealed the Xbox One, and then there was this whole blow up and drama around the always online connectivity, all of these features he wanted in that device. And that was in May. And then he left Microsoft in July. So from the time he did that interview at E3 2013, within a few weeks, he was gone, which is crazy. And of course, he would be immediately replaced by Phil Spencer. And Phil kind of kickstarted the next era of Xbox. And he had to do a lot of work to unwind and untangle the mess that Don had left for him and the team. But the point is, this is not the first time with Nintendo that corporate executives have expressed horrifically out of touch sentiments, basically daring their customers not to buy the device and to stick with the old one from a decade ago. This is not the first time. It happened back at the start of the Xbox One generation, and I think we all know how that generation went for Xbox. Gamers said, oh, really? You're telling me, you don't like the pricing? Oh, well, don't buy it, brokey. That's basically what they're telling you. They're daring you not to buy it. So you know what? Bet. Oh my God, I feel like such a zoomer. I just said bet unironically. It was sort of ironic. Please don't unsubscribe. But seriously, they are daring you not to buy their product. And at some point, when a company is asking you not to buy their product because you can't afford it or whatever, you should just like give them what they want. Okay, I won't buy it. Okay, I won't buy the Switch too. Yeah, if you're gonna charge $80 for games and then talk down to me for being upset about that, why should I give you my money? Like, I'm not going to. And across the board, the Switch 2 has been a masterclass in corporate greed, in monetizing every little bitty thing they possibly can, even down to the console exclusives like the new From Software game. All of those are like multiplayer games. They require the Nintendo Online membership, which right now is relatively cheap compared to what it could be, but I would bet you very good money that Nintendo is going to raise the price of that right before or right after that game launches in order to milk players even more dry. It's just amazing how much they have overstepped what they probably could have gotten away with. I think the $450 price point, it's aggressive, but I think we could deal with it. But then you see the $80 games, $90 physical versions. You see them pricing these little spin-off projects at $10. I didn't even get into some of the other stuff, such as the upgrades, the digital like enhanced upgrade for Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. Each of those being $10 in order to make it like run at a higher resolution and frame rate, something that would normally be a free patch on PC. Now they're charging you $10 for that, unless you're subscribed to various memberships that Nintendo has, or all of the other countless things that Nintendo is trying to get away with the launch of the Switch 2, because they feel entitled to your money. That really is all that this comes down to. They feel entitled to your money. They think they can do this and get away with it, and people will still buy it in droves, and it'll just be like water under the bridge. I mean, that's really what they think this is. And I'm not so sure at this point. You know, when they first did that showcase of the Switch 2, I was like, okay, I don't think this blows up anywhere near as big as the Switch because we have other handhelds on the market now, but it probably does pretty well. But now I'm really starting to question that presumption, because at this point, I seriously don't know anybody who is down for this. Like, everybody is ticked off over what Nintendo is doing. There's a very high likelihood they're gonna have to raise the price even more in the US and potentially Canada and other countries as well. And as a result, like, there's just no reason to get into it right now. Maybe in a year it makes sense. Maybe right before the Dusk Bloods or whatever comes out, maybe then it makes sense to get into a Switch 2. But until or unless Nintendo is willing to walk some of this back and not talk down to their own customers, I don't know why I would support them. Like, I love spending money frivolously. I'm a YouTuber. It's basically my love language. And I still am like, I don't want to give them money. I don't want to buy this. I'm good. I mean, I was thinking, yeah, I'll pre-order it. We'll do a video or two on it. And at this point, as a matter of principle, I'm just not interested. Like, go dry up, Nintendo. But as always, I'm going to be really interested to hear what you guys think in the comment section below. My audience is not typically super into Nintendo stuff, just as is. And I can only imagine what you guys are feeling with this stuff, because we talk a lot about like pricing. We talk a lot about like consumer advocacy, being pro-consumer versus anti-consumer. It's a topic that comes up a lot on my channels. And this is like a masterclass in how to do everything wrong. And again, it's just amazing because Nintendo, I think, had a home run on their hands. They just reveal this console. Oh, maybe it's a little bit more expensive. It's a $450. Okay. And everybody would have just rolled over and continued on with their day. Some people would have bought it. Some people wouldn't have, but it probably would have done really well. But instead, they've just been greedy at every single step along the way, monetizing buttons, monetizing all sorts of insanity, like little bitty tutorials and tech demos. And then when people have a frustration around it, when people are upset about it, they basically call you a brokey and dare you not to buy the console and stick to the game console from 8 years ago. And you know what? Okay, that's kind of where I'm at. Okay, I won't buy it. Clearly you think that something's wrong with me if I don't want to buy it or if I'm upset about the price. And instead of engaging in like an honest discourse about that and just being like, yeah, we had to raise the price. Mario Kart World cost us 200 million, 300 million to make. If they were talking honestly like that, I think people would respect it. They still might not buy it, but at least people would respect it. But instead they're like, yeah, so if you're broke, I mean, I guess you're stuck. And they even define it as rungs. They're like, you'll just be entering basically at the bottom rung of our ecosystem, but that's fine. It's so stupid and insulting. Anyway, I'm getting riled up. I should stop before I get lightheaded. So let me know what you think in the comments. I love and appreciate every single one of you more than you could possibly know. Truly, like, I get to do this for a living. I talk about games and stuff. Like, what is this? This is real life for me. And it was at one time a dream, but now you've made it a reality by watching my videos. So truly, truly, thank you. But with that, much love. I'll see you in the next one. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.